House to Home, presented by Remax Diamond Realty.
All right, everybody, shall we dance? We shall, because it is Tuesday and it's time for House to Home. Liz Duenas, Gina Campos, and humbly myself, Jason Salas, are bringing you the information that you need to know about Guam's ever-changing real estate market. Truly an innovative place to work. Ladies, half a day. Welcome back again.
Half a day.
Okay.
Hey, Jay, I think you have dancing on your mind because last week you have Beyonce.
That's true.
And shall we dance? So yeah, we got to get you out there.
Well, I've been known to, I can embarrass myself publicly. Let's just say that has happened before. School dancing.
Yeah, we all can.
Well for me, but that's a completely different interview. We'll do that next week, Henry. But
do it well, Jason.
We actually got a lot of really good feedback on our segment from last week about service animals being allowed by mandate of federal law inside residential property. So I wanted to see, ladies, if we can talk about maybe something like how much leeway does a tenant have, say if it is a residential property and obviously they're leasing from a landlord, how much leeway do they have for what they actually can do as a tenant? Because some people might say, I want to set up a little lemonade stand for my kid, or we're fundraising for school, so we're going to make cookies or brownies or anything like that. Where do you actually have to draw the line of delineation, say, okay, well, now you're kind of creeping over into maybe commercial zoning or agricultural zoning and everything like that? Is that even a big deal on Guam?
There's a difference, because let's say they rented for a house as a house rental, and let's say it's in an R1 zone, or let's say they rented in an apartment building. If they're renting in an apartment building, there house rules, there's HOA rules and guidelines of what can be done and cannot be done within a condo or a townhome complex. So, and then in the tenant's lease, it will usually stipulate in the lease, where if they have storage, for example, what can they do? And always in the lease, if it's a townhome or a condo complex, it normally reflects these are the house rules that go along with residents in this particular complex. But when you're dealing with a house, again, if it's in the R1 zone, whatever they do is contained within the property.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, okay, sorry, Gino. I was using, facetious examples earlier. We go out into the public yard or the public parking lot of an apartment complex, and we say, hey, lemonade stand, for my kid. Oh, it's all cute and everything like that. What if I'm actually inviting people into my home because I'm doing business consulting, or I'm, facilitating some sort of transaction and everything? And so I'm actually using my unit as a storefront.
So my, if a landlord or tenant asks me advice about that, first, the landlord should be aware of it, and the landlord should have given you consent that they're aware and they're willing to let you do that. But primarily, if you're going to do it legally, then this involves getting a business license for a home business of some sort. So if you've got that out of the way, if you went and made the effort to get a home, a license to do a home business, maybe if I were in that position and I wanted to do something like that, some kind of home office or home sale, I would first call my landlord and say, hey, I decided to do a bakery out of my house. I'm going to be making baked goods, and
exactly,
people are going to come over to pick it up. How do you feel about that? And if my landlord says, hey, it's your power bill, go for it, then it's between me and the landlord, right? Okay, I got
a real cool landlord.
Yeah. And then the next thing I'd have to do is, I imagine you need to get that permitted somehow, or get some kind of home business, some kind of business license to operate that out of your home. I don't know if public health's involved, because that's food. What if it wasn't food? Check with
what if I'm wholesaling golf equipment, let's say, and I'm using my apartment, a spare room in my apartment is literally like my showroom. Hey, come inside, check out. I got putters, I got drivers, I got the nice fuzzy caps and everything, the ones that look really cool. The tiger,
yeah. So for me, those are two issues. Will the landlord allow you to do it? If you don't own the home, get your landlord's permission. And then the second is, You probably need a business license. So address that with revenue and tax. And I notice online now, you could actually go online and there's a lot of information from revenue and tax now. So you might be able to get most of your questions answered by going online and investigating that. So something like that, that's how I would handle it. Talk to your landlord first. And then after that, go through the process of getting a business license.
Okay, I'm just gonna check on the floor right here because according to Gina, knowledge has just been dropped. So like I'm gonna pick that up. Very well said, Gina. Okay. Now Ms. Duenas, if I can ask you, I'd like to talk about agricultural possible issues, right? Like say we talked last week, of course, about like service animals, and we talked in the previous week about pets and whether or not they may be allowed within the terms of your lease. What if I was like say raising a pig? Right? For the purposes of specifically livestock, I want to raise it. I want to fatten it up. I want to get it like ready because I want to have bacon for the next, the rest of the year and everything. And that's completely my intent. Am I violating any sort of laws or just?
If let's say the house is in an agricultural zone, then it's allowed. An agricultural zone, you could raise a cow, you can use a pig, you could do, animal farm, you could even do farming in your backyard. Now, if you own the home, then no problem. That's not a problem at all if you own and it's in an agricultural zone. The neighbors could complain, but if it's an A zone, what can they say? It is an agricultural zone. Now, if you're renting a home that sits in an agricultural zone, it's a little different. As Gina puts it, you and your landlord have to come to an agreement. So if you come to me, Jason, and you say, hey, I want to rent this house, it's in an A zone, it's perfect, and I can raise my pigs and fatten them up and then sell them on the open market, then I would have a discussion with the landlord. The tenant's intent is to raise pigs and sell them eventually. So then that would be different. But again, if the landlord agrees to it, then I could certainly put that in the lease. So it stipulates it that Jason's going to be a tenant for 1 year, and landlord acknowledges and accepts that the tenant will be raising pigs in the backyard.
That's actually that's not such a bad business proposition because the pork belly market is actually doing very well right now, from what I know.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think the key that Gina and I want to emphasize is that as long as there is an agreement and it conforms to any government requirements, we can stipulate it in the lease that the landlord has agreed for you to do this within the confines of your rental property. And then you are responsible, of course, to get the proper licenses and clearances to make it happen.
Okay, now ladies, let's flip the script, as the kids say. Right now, we've been talking about situations where the landlord is very amenable to these kind of like ideas, transactions, what have you, right? What if I'm the tenant and I go to say Gina Campos, my landlord, and I say, hey, I'd like to raise pigs for the purpose of entering the pork belly market, or just having bacon for my family, right? What if Gina says, okay, well, that's not in your agreement, but I'm going to go ahead and allow it as your landlord, but I get 20% of your profits? Is it, as the tenant, is that something I should know or that I should report, or is that just like, is that fair game up for negotiation?
Geez, Jace, you come up with some really interesting questions. So if a landlord,
you have a lot of time to still like sit by yourself in an empty room and just think about stuff,
we got to get you out.
Yeah, it's like, oh God, it's like high school all over again. But
You're thinking way too much, Jason.
Again, I told you school dances were never a big thing for me.
There you go again with that dance. Liz, we got to get him out.
Oh gosh.
But you know what? I mean, that's an interesting question, because if a tenant called me and said, Gina, I'm going to start raising dogs and selling them, or pigs and selling them, and I asked for a profit, I don't know. If I were the tenant, or even as a landlord, I think I'd call a lawyer friend and say, hey, I'm thinking of asking my tenant for a percentage of his business because he's renting my house, and I feel like if he's going to make a business out of my home, then I should profit from it. I think I'd get some legal advice. And so I don't feel like that's really real estate advice. That's more legal advice. Can I ask that?
And I appreciate the honesty. Yeah, that's totally fair. Right.
Yeah, I mean, so even as a tenant, if my landlord asked for something like that, it kind of makes sense in my head if I worked it through, if I thought about it from the beginning to the end of that question, and just, would this make sense? Could I, as a landlord, ask to profit from their business that they're running out of my home? But again, I really feel like I should get some legal advice before I ask my tenant that. But it's as simple as this. It isn't just about running a business out of the home. What if your tenant is just a slob, and you drive by your home, or your friends call you and say, "Oh my gosh, what's going on at your property? There's like 10 vehicles parked in front. They all look like they're abandoned." Or, "Did you know you've got 20 trash bags piled up in your carport?"
Which is a way more frequent occurrence on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or did you know there's 20 other people living in the home with them? And we've had that.
And this is not official subletting. This is just, this is unofficial, unapproved cohabitation.
Right.
Exactly. And so we get calls like that all the time. So not even as, as interesting as running a business out of the home. More, there's too much trash. They've accumulated all kinds of stuff. And we know, as we having dealt with residential property and rentals, we know that when a tenant accumulates so much stuff to the point where it's oozing out the door, and it's in the carport, and it's filling up the yard, there comes a point where they can't get rid of some of these things. When it's time to move out, we've got a big issue in our hand. And so, those are things landlords and tenants need to be mindful of. So in here at the office, we do property management. And when we notice things like that, we start getting concerned, and we start notifying the landlords, "Hey, by the way, we're noticing that there's a huge accumulation of trash around the house, in the yard, and it's a health hazard." So those kind of things need to be addressed. And we do send out notices for that. As a landlord, you can too. And as a tenant, if that was your intention from the very beginning, if you knew you had a lot of stuff and you knew you had to store it outside, like piled up in the yard, you should be really upfront with your landlord in the very beginning and get it in writing. Yes, I can store whatever I want in the yard, or itemize what you're going to store, or say, "I have 20 vehicles. I'm going to be doing car repair in my yard." I mean, there's all kinds of things, but get it in writing.
Okay. And Liz, I'd like to give you the final word, because I hearkened to something back you said in the very first episode of this show 6 years ago. You said, technically on the books, this is a business relationship between tenant and landlord, but because you're talking about where people live, you're also building a relationship.
That's true. But the problem also with tenants who, as Gina puts it, put junk in the yard, cars and trash. The bottom line is, who's going to end up with the problem in the end? If the tenant is, let's say, walks away and does not clean up the trash, nor do they haul away. And it's happened to both Gina and myself, where they've left abandoned vehicles, and then we had to call someone to come haul them away. So bottom line, it's the landlord who ends up having to clean up the mess. So landlords are usually vigilant during the term of the lease to make sure they're not stuck with it. But some who aren't end up having, I myself had to have a vehicle hauled away because the tenant didn't move it from the yard. So we all are responsible in the end. So it's best to be vigilant with the use of your property during the rental term.
Well, bless the both of you for being so devoted to your craft and everything like that. We certainly do appreciate it, and we appreciate the knowledge. It's the knowledge still has been dropped, so I'm going to go pick that up from the both of you, and I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Please stay safe. Bye bye.
Thank you.